Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
What does a healthy, balanced lifestyle consist of? How should you eat? What exercise should you be doing? How many hours of sleep do we really need? Does too much water flush away all your vitamins? Should it be high carb, low fat, or high fat, low carb? The more research you do, the more confusing it gets, because there is so much information out there, and there are so many conflicting opinions. So how are we supposed to know? Stick around to explore the different approaches to health with us, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and let's try to figure out together what the heck being healthy really means. I am your host, Hazel Priscilla, and this is your weekly dose of Feed Me Honesty. Hello, healthy humans, and welcome back to today's episode. I hope to, by the end of this episode, have brought joy to every single listener who resonated with the title and clicked to tune in. You have taken a step in the right direction because don't we all one day want to be able to say, like Emily Dickinson, that the mere sense of living is joy enough for us? And as always, I have a very insightful guest with me in studio today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome joy seeker Sandra Korsch. No, wait, that's not right. Say that surname.
Of course.
Am I right?
No, it was right.
Okay, cool. I just learned it today, so forgive me. So welcome, Sandra. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
Just a little bit of background about Sandra. She studied international business and was an exchange student at the University of Stellenbosch in 1999, only to return to South Africa 16 years later. It's after getting actively involved with a local community in Namibia that Sandra learned about joy. The way those women lived inspired her, and she wanted the world to see and experience that vibe. In order to share that with the world, she created a collection of handmade fair trade travel accessories with a story about the makers and the fabric. Years later, when traveling in the southern part of Europe with a friend, Sandra was rethinking her life when she says she heard herself saying, "Yes, but joy can change the world." It was when she arrived in South Africa in 2016 that she decided to further investigate this topic to find out what joy means and what needs to change. Sandra calls this period in her life a start of a whole new chapter. She interviewed many people, read and still reads lots of books related to the topic, and her dream is to create a documentary on joy. That is why she decided at the beginning of this year to take a leap of faith and start studying cinematography. A call to follow her joy is how Sandra explains this decision. She discovered that she finds immense joy in making videos. And now that we know almost everything about you, hello Sandra, it is such a pleasure to have you sit right across from me this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, jumping into the first question. Why don't you please begin by telling us a bit more about yourself and why you are so interested and fascinated by the concept of joy?
You explained it beautifully. My journey started a long time ago, and I think Namibia was very much a tipping point or a realization of how little one needs to experience joy in life. And from my Western upbringing, being in a tiny little village in Namibia, that was really, it was an eye-opener, I would say, to really see that. And I remember that I wanted to put it, to put that vibe into a jar and spread that with the world. I thought this is what the world needs to know.
Yeah. Just to stop you, where did you actually grow up? Because I don't think our listeners know that yet.
I grew up in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I had my first time in Africa was in South Africa in 1999, and after that I had such a strong longing to go back. Yeah, and it turned out to be Namibia, and now fortunately I'm back in South Africa.
It's funny because that's what your friend Tessa said to me as well, and she grew up in the same place, and she said it's just like the first time she visited South Africa, she always knew she was going to come back. Yeah. And now the two of you are great friends, and you didn't even know each other. It's so cool.
True, but I think I realized at the moment later, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I realized that I kind of recognized something when I was living in Namibia. And it's a recognition that something resonated with something deep inside of me. And I didn't even call it joy at the time. I called it positive vibes or vibrancy, or lust for life. And it was in 2015 or so that I really had that phrase, but joy can change the world. And that's how I actually started to unfold.
So why did you then come to South Africa if Namibia was the place where, you felt your joy or where that was awakened in you?
Yeah, because I also realized that Namibia wasn't resonating with me the way South Africa did.
Okay.
I feel very much alive when I'm in South Africa, and I didn't have that similar experience when I was in Namibia.
Okay.
Yeah.
A few months ago, I attended a one-day retreat that was hosted by previous guest Tessa, who we just mentioned, and our guest today, Sandra, during which we were all asked to define what the word joy means to us. I can't really even remember what I said that day, but then I thought about it again while I was working on this episode, and then I came up with this. This is what I think is joy to me. Being accepting of whoever you are in the moment, where you are in the moment, and with what you have in the moment. And then also being eager for what is to come. So Sandra, what does joy mean to you, and why do you define it that way? Or is it something that can even be defined?
Yeah, I think we're trying. We're always trying to define it.
Yes.
And in all the interviews I have done, I've heard the most beautiful, beautiful descriptions of joy. And it made me understand a little bit more what it means to me. And I think my description would come closest to being in love with life.
Yes.
It is it very much is something that comes from within. And it's about, it's those days on which you just smile for no particular reason. You didn't win the lottery.
Yes.
You didn't get that fantastic compliment. It just bubbles up.
Comes from within and not from
And
external.
I experience it as, I can smile. I'm just in love with life. And it's like I feel I'm the most, I'm the happiest person on the planet. That's what it feels
almost
like to me.
when you fall in love with another person and you have that butterflies, but this is now just not, you didn't fall in love. It wasn't someone else. It's literally
Just
about
you,
life.
Yeah.
You're in love with life.
Yeah.
Yes, and that makes total sense. Okay, so in the spirit of joy, I have decided that we are going to play a little game, and we're still going to call it quizzing the quotes. So basically, I'm going to read a few quotes that I found on the internet that are related to joy, and then you have to tell me whether or not you agree with it and why.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready? The first quote is by Joseph Campbell, and he says, "We cannot cure the world of its sorrows, but we can choose to live in joy." So that's the quote. My question is, do you believe that we can cure the world of its sorrows? That's question A. And B, do you think that we can choose to be joyful regardless of the world's sorrows? So first, can we cure the world of its sorrows? Do you think so?
I think that's a very, very difficult question to answer. I think the only thing we can do is change ourselves. And I do believe, and more research is done on that, I do believe that if we decide, or we are consciously deciding to be aware and to be accepting of situations as they are, we will be able to experience joy more often, which is a very high vibration.
Yes.
And they have done a beautiful research. David Hawkins has written a beautiful book on it. It's called Power versus Force, and he has developed a map of consciousness, and he actually states that there are vibrations that are actually very low, like fear, anxiety, despair.
Yes.
And they if you feel that, and if you're in that vibration, you actually can't do anything positive, nor for yourself nor for the world. But up from a level of 200, 200 is courage.
Okay.
You move up, and then you've got love, and you've got joy, and you've got ultimate consciousness.
Yes, I've heard about that as well.
Yeah, and I find it fascinating, and he's done research on it. So it's kind of it's getting more and more scientific. And joy resonates as a frequency of 540, which is really high.
Yeah.
And what it does, it actually influences more than, I think, even at a frequency of 350, you already influence 90,000 other people. Yeah. So yes, in a way, can we cure the world? No, and yes. I mean, it's about becoming more and more aware of who you are and what state you're in, and raising your levels of vibration to have a positive impact without you even knowing, having a positive impact on the world.
I actually also heard that, well, I think with that same thing of the vibrations on different levels and frequencies, that literally if you are in despair, your goal shouldn't be to be joyful because it's too big of a jump. Your goal should actually be to be angry or to feel revenge or something, because that is moving up the scale. And as soon as you get angry and you feel like you want revenge, you're moving up, and then from there on you can get to hopeful, or you can get to whatever, and then move up until you get to joy. Unless you meditate, which is kind of like, it can throw you right into joy, but I won't talk about that. So the part 2 of this question was, can we choose to be joyful regardless of the world's sorrows? So that's kind of yes. I think we already answered that question.
But I think
totally.
I think we must.
It is hard. It is hard when someone around you, is not on your vibration. I think it can pull you down. But like you said, your high vibration is so much stronger than. What's the level of, let's say someone's in despair, what's
30,
the count?
50.
So obviously the 500 or the 300 is much stronger. So it's much easier to pull them up, I think, or to influence them than it is for them to influence you.
It is, but there are a lot of people at this moment on our planet who are vibrating a very, very low frequency.
Yeah, so that adds up. All the 30s become 3,000, is like 130s.
But the effect, from what I read, and I actually do recognize it. The high vibration has such a huge impact on so many people that it will. We are getting at the point in which it is going to tip into.
I feel it too.
Yeah, I think that's great. So I think yes, to answer your question, I think we must.
Yes.
Despite what's going on,
we must. I totally agree with you, because what's the alternative to that? If we also just go and if we just also feel despair, that's definitely not going to change anything. That's going to make it worse. So there's kind of the only option we have is to not.
To do that. Yeah.
Okay. So the second quote is by Henry Noven. I don't even know how to say the surname, but he's not here, so I'm sorry, Henry. Joy does not simply happen to us. We have to choose joy and keep choosing it every day. So that's the quote. My question: do you agree that we have to keep choosing joy every single day, or do you think it's okay to not choose joy every day?
That's always. I do believe in a way that joy is a choice, but it's more about, do I stay in my misery, or do I stay in my suffering, or do I decide to actually change and look at things from a different perspective? And that all starts with accepting a situation as it is. Yeah. And when I started my research, I thought, joy is that happy vibe, and it's always beautiful and positive. But I've come to understand that it's about accepting the whole range of emotions that we as human beings go through. Yes. And it's about embracing also the darkness, and it's about embracing our anger, and it's the despair that we all experience that. And I think it's about accepting that you feel that way, be with it, but not dwell in it. Yes. And I think that is a choice. I think we have a choice to not dwell in it. I agree. And our mind is so strong, and what we do, we have an experience and we feel anxiety, and then the whole story pops up, and but my brother did that when I was 10 years old.
That's so true.
Yeah, and I remember now my teacher.
And then all of a sudden you can't see anything.
No, and all these stories, and if you're aware of it, it's all stories that you're made up.
Exactly, or it's the stuff that you already dealt with, but now you're making yourself deal with it again unnecessarily, or you thought you dealt with it. But I also read somewhere or heard, I can't remember where, but it takes literally a few seconds for you to think negative thoughts before it starts gaining so much momentum that it's almost impossible to turn it around unless you take a nap, or you meditate, or you change your thoughts, which is very hard then at that point. But it literally takes a few seconds. So that person or whatever said that catching it early and turning it around early, so feel it, but before it goes too far, turn it around.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I think there was a part B to this. I also think, do you think that it's possible that joy can simply happen to you, or do you consciously have to choose it?
You know, I think it is, sometimes sometimes there are these moments in my life that I just feel this complete joy, and it just arises, you know, and then you think, what's now the recipe? Why did it happen? And I think it comes down to doing things you really, really love. So we can make choices in our lives that will result in the experience of more intense joy and more
coming to you.
More often. And it's about doing the things you love. And it could be for something very, very silly as, oh, I love reading a book, or I love when I wake up in the morning, just having 15 minutes on my balcony, or I love dancing. You know, I'm allowing myself to, you know, even at the age of 59, allowing myself to go into dance classes.
Yeah.
That really does do something to our soul, and it makes it easier for joy to just come to the surface.
It's funny you mentioned that now, because it wasn't a Friday night. I don't even know how this started. It popped up into my YouTube feed. I watched a video of this girl dancing. She's 16 years old, but they showed her from 5 years old, and like she just understands rhythm, this lady. And I think it was an hour or two later, I was still watching that videos of this girl dancing, because it just I felt like I could do anything watching that. Like, it felt so good. And I think that made me realize, if you just like dance, how, you know, it's so simple. It's for free. It doesn't matter how you look. You can do it in your room. You can close the door. No one has to see you. But that brings you so much joy, hey?
I think
it's almost an instant.
I think it might be, you know, and it will be different things for different people.
Yes.
And what I discovered in my interviews, it's very often related to doing something creative, of expressing yourself, whether that is painting or writing music or going to the theater, because it's also watching creative stuff.
Yes.
And what I have noticed is I believe joy is contagious. And when you see somebody I think it's a beautiful example of you watching that video. It is because somebody is so enjoying. She is, you know, and that makes it so wonderful to, and in that respect, I do think joy is a contagious thing, and we should, you know, do it and try to be in that state as often as we can.
And when you are, like we said, when you're in despair, you know, try to turn it around as quickly as possible. But then when you are in joy, try to milk it as much as you can. Literally, like, try to stay in that moment and savor it for as long as you can. I think that's
but don't hold on to it, because it doesn't work that way either. You know, just enjoy it.
Try to keep the momentum going of joy. Yeah. Okay, I think we can move on to the next quote by Alicia. The joy we seek can only be created from the joy we have within. So do you agree that the joy has to be created within, or do you think we can find it in external factors or other people?
I think I do believe that joy is something that really comes from within. And I think it's very often confused with pleasure or entertainment. And I think when we try to get it in situations with other or from other people, or I think primarily from other people, I don't think it works that way. I think it can be multiplied when you experience it, but it's something very different from pleasure or seeking entertainment. You know, going out and having drinks with friends is I don't believe you will. No, it's got to come from the inside out.
And I think when you already found the joy inside, then it's easier to see the external joys, or to appreciate the external joys. So when you're in a good mood, it's easier to love someone else, or to appreciate someone else, or to appreciate a good coffee. When you're in a bad mood, nothing tastes good, no one looks pretty, no one is like a good person, you know. So find it within, but then after you found it within, you'll find it everywhere. That's kind of.
But if you don't have it, and you hope to find it when you are with friends or with other people, that they, you know, you want them to give you something, that's a condition. And I don't believe it works that way.
To put on someone else, to say, even if you're married, now you have to make me happy, and you know that person is also just a person, so they're not going to be able to do that anyway.
No, I think that's very much an inside job, and I realize more and more that joy is very much an inside job. And meditation and silence and just being with yourself helps. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Lastly, another quote by Joseph Campbell: find a place inside where there's joy, and the joy will burn out the pain. I think all of these kind of come to down to the same thing, but do you think that joy can burn out the pain?
Yeah, I do believe it can.
I think that's already agreed upon. Okay, so
it requires work.
Yes,
it's not just up. You go to, like you said, you go from despair to joy. It doesn't work that way. Joy is a journey.
Yes,
and you got to take that one step at a time.
Yeah.
And
it's not a college degree.
No, it's
have it
not.
Some days, and other days you don't have it.
And just be in acceptance of the days in which you don't have it, and just allow yourself the space to, okay, today I'm not having it. Oh yeah, today I actually feel a desire which is very ego-driven. Okay, I'm aware of it.
Yes.
I just go with it, don't punish yourself.
Yeah, I think when I just started, it was about 2 years ago when I started to just decide I'm going to consciously, be happy, doesn't matter what happens around me. Then I found myself being so hard on myself more than ever before, because I'm like, every time then I wasn't happy or wasn't appreciative or whatever. I was so like, oh, I'm this terrible person, and I now so believe in joy, and now I'm not doing it. So so I think it's a fine line to not be hard on yourself when you are not in joy.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, on my whole journey, I lost it completely. I had no joy whatsoever. I mean, I always hit a moment of my, they call it the dark night of the soul, in which I thought, why am I actually alive? And that is, you can't seek it and grab it. No. It doesn't work that way. No.
Which makes it so cool. It's wonderful. I love that fact about it, actually. And it's so cool when you have that rock bottom moment. The most beautiful stuff comes from that, always. I mean, you don't have to get to rock bottom in order to get to all these beautiful
if it's
things.
Not necessary.
But when you have nothing more to lose, and you don't have no one to lose, no one or nothing, then you have to turn to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, the last question I literally wrote: do you have anything else that you want to say about the topic of joy before we wrap up this episode? Only because I don't want to force it into a direction. If you might have insights that I don't know about, and I didn't ask you about it. So is there anything that you feel we need to add that people will find valuable?
Well, there's one thing I would like to add, because I think for me it's very interesting to have such a deep, I had such a deep desire to be in South Africa. And of course I wondered why. And my soul feels very much alive here in South Africa. And I think it's one of the things that I have seen here in the interviews that I've done with South African people is that they have a beautiful, they can access that place of joy within themselves so beautifully. And it's about, and I think it has, and it's a fascinating thing, because in South Africa there's always that undercurrent of fear, because a lot of things have happened in this country, still happening in this country when it comes to safety. So there's always a kind of, you're kind of on the edge. And I've also interviewed people and worked with people, colored people as well. And then they have these intense emotions of sadness, and they cry, and then 5 minutes later I walk in again in the same room, and then they have so much fun together. And I thought, and that's what it is. It's about allowing all the emotions,
not holding on to anything.
No.
Yes.
And then when I talk to them and I interview them, they straight into their joy. You can see it in the spark in their eyes. You can see it by the way their body moves. And I think that is something that I realized that South Africa may realize is that they have something very, very powerful to share with the world, and that's the power of joy.
And I think they allow themselves to have fun, because I think a lot of people, it's almost kind of the way we are trained in society, where you have to work hard, you have to earn this, you have to earn that, you have to prove yourself, that kind of thing. So then you feel guilty when you have fun or when you're enjoying yourself. And I think South Africans kind of have a good balance between, knowing when to work and when to get stuff done, and knowing when to just kick back and have fun.
And the country allows for it. I mean, it's a beautiful country where you can be,
especially here in Cape Town.
Yeah, you can be outdoors. And I think one of the things I've picked up is nature is a very beautiful way of getting back to yourself and experiencing
and
more joy.
Yeah, which is part of nature,
which is here in abundance in a way. So and I think one thing I would like to add is what you say is that we feel guilty.
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't allow themselves to experience joy, but I do believe joy is our birthright. It's really what we're meant to experience here.
And you have so much more to give when you are in joy.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to be the best version of yourself for other people and for your country and for the human race and for everyone around you?
Yeah.
So that's actually your biggest responsibility, I believe. Your biggest responsibility is almost not to make your bed in the morning or to go to work every day. Your biggest responsibility is to find your joy and to be, so that you can have something to give to others.
Yeah.
Okay,
Totally
Sandra,
agree.
thank you so much for your time and for choosing joy and spreading it everywhere you go. It was such a joyful experience for me to have you on the show. You want to say goodbye?
Yeah, thanks so very much for having me.
Sandra created a website, www.heelsandhikingboots.nl. Is that still relevant?
Yeah, it's high heels and hiking boots.
High heels and hiking boots, so you can go and check that out if you're interested. Then a big thank you again to everyone who tuned in this week. Do the same next week when we talk to Dr. Junaid Rahut about mental health. I would like to thank our engineer today, Pieter Matthijser, and also a big shout out to him for the funky tune that you get to hear in the background every week. But that's not all. He is also responsible for the mix of this episode. Jack of all trades. Don't forget, you can now find Feed Me Honesty on Instagram, so please go give our page a like and join in on the conversation. Have a balanced week and remember to be kind to yourself so that you can be kind to others too. Feed Me Honesty is a South African lifestyle podcast hosted by Hazel Priscilla and produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.